Hello guys, my name is Arun Tyagi and let's continue our journey of low-level design discussions. So today we are going to discuss another low-level design, which is design a hotel management system. And before we jump on into this, so we established a process of covering a low-level design in our last video. So I will just go over the steps which we defined in our last video. So first is just list down the functional requirement of whatever you know. Don't sweat too much about it. Whatever you know about the system which you are designing, just list the functional requirements of that. Once you did that, whatever 10 9 requirements you are having, from every statement extract the nouns. So list down those nouns, uh, and that will become your classes. Those will be the classes which you need to design in this particular design. Once you did that, just identify your actors. Like normally you have users, in hotel management you will have receptionist, admin, and blah blah blah. Just list those down. Once you did that, just list down the activities of that actor. That who is, for example, what a receptionist will do, what a user will do, and that will become your activity diagram, right? Once that is done, just whatever classes you identified earlier, means the noun you identified, just group them so that, for example, user, receptionist, all relatable class, or room key, like that, those just write them down together. Once you will do this kind of grouping, it will be easy for you to create a UML diagram. Once you did that, just write the basic properties, like a user will have name, a room will have a room number, a room key will have key combinations, blah blah blah, whatever is there. Just list down those properties and the basic functionalities, empty functions. And once you did that, that will be your UML diagram. From that UML diagram, you just need to copy. If user is one of the class in your UML diagram, just copy it, create a class of it, and write down those basic functionalities. Write down the empty functions, methods, whichever you wrote in your UML diagram, and that's it. This is your skeleton is here ready. From here on, you can work on the specific functionality which your interviewer is asking you to work upon. This process we established in our last video. Obviously we will cover that also here. Plus, now I will build upon this foundation, and I'm going towards that how can we learn low level design pattern when we are designing these. So I already earlier I created videos on almost all the low level design patterns, but I realized learning via just reading about those is not that much effective. But if we will learn low level patterns when we are designing a real design, then it's actually easy, and that way we will not be able to forget it. So I'll try to build this also as a part of our process. Let's start hotel management design now. Let's start with the requirements first. So this need not to be written like this only, right? So I tried to write it down as I was thinking about it. So this can be in any order. Whatever you know about hotel management, just try to write down those requirements. Don't stress too much about it. So what I wrote down here is there will be 4 types of account: a guest who is searching and all, a housekeeper who do all the chores of the room, then a receptionist, and system, obviously, right? Then there can be different type of rooms, like we see on systems like booking.com and others, right? So I just wrote down some here. Then what a guest can do: guest can search for the room. He will always give a check-in date and for how many nights he wants to book that room. Then a user should be able to pay via different payment options when you are booking the rooms, right? Then guest can cancel the booking, This we see is a very famous, this is obvious options on all the platforms. So system should send notification whenever something is happening on your bookings, changing, canceling, confirmed, blah blah blah. User should receive a notification. All housekeeping tasks should be logged into a system and managed by the system. That, whatever task got created, they're logged into it first, and then it will be assigned to someone. Someone will do it. So there, that entire ledger should be there. Guest can add extra items to the booking, right? For example, dinner, spa, breakfast, and other amenities. And there should be a key of the room and master key for some specific rooms, or master key for all the rooms, right? So these are just some requirements which I wrote down. There can be more, right, which you can think of. Once you did this, right, the next step, like I said previously, just extract nouns or proper nouns from these statements. So I tried to list that down. Guest, user, housekeeper, receptionist, system, account. All these came from like four, are like they were straightforward. Accounts were here. Then next I moved. Then I had a room and booking. Then I had fee, payment, invoice, notifications, amenities, key, status. Right. So I wrote them down. So once this is done, just try to create clustering. Though here itself, I tried to write down things together, which looks relatable to me. But once this is done, you can do a further clustering of it. Basically, user, guest, receptionist, housekeeper, system. All these looks like accounts to me. So I just wrote them down together. Then your hotel, room, your booking, these obviously belongs together, so I wrote them down together. Then notifications, status of it, cancel, confirmed, all those things will go together. And your room key, room amenities, these I wrote them down together. Why I did that? Because once this is done, your designing a UML diagram seems to be an easy thing to me, right? This is not a necessary step, but this helps. Let's move to the third step, which is activity diagram. So first we need to identify the actors. So in this case, we had all those guest, housekeeper, receptionist, and the system. Then just try to list down the activities which you see in your requirements, like my guest, what a guest can do. Search the room is the first, then basically do booking, right? Then he can do cancel booking, and there are cascading effects. Like if you will cancel the booking, you cancel, check if there is a fee of the cancellation fee. So there are like activities which are dependent on the actions which a user is taking. And then and obviously when you are doing it, then you will receive notifications also on confirmation and cancellation and all those, right? And use room key also is one of the things which a guest will do. Same way for the housekeeper, another actor, what you will do is log the task into the system. There is obviously cascading tasks on that, and complete the task that I simply did it, right? Then your receptionist, they can manage the booking if there is any changes into the booking, right? And second is issue a room key to the guest. Finally, system, most important thing is have to send the notifications, then handle payments, manage rooms, manage master keys, and housekeeping task managements, whatever is going on there. So this is basically just your activity diagram. You can simply write it down, create a diagram, right, for a better view. But all of these items came from your requirements only. So far, we didn't do much, right? Let's move to the next step, which is our class diagram or UML diagram, right? So this might look clumsy, but that's why I said, try to cluster your classes together, and then it will be easy for you to create this diagram. So like we did earlier, our accounts, guest, receptionist, housekeeper, and all, those we tried to write down together. Then we tried to write down room, room key, room services, amenities together, right? Room booking, all those. We tried to write them, we clustered them together. That is what we used here to create this diagram. Now, if you see, what we did here is we have these three users or these three accounts together. Then what I just did is I created a parent class to them. That what are the types of these? They are simply persons. So I created a person class and an account class. It can be one class, just name that as account. I just try to segregate that into two classes, account and person, where person is having these specific things, and when it will become an account, it is having ID and password also. So my guest, receptionist, housekeeper, all of them will extend this base class, call it a person, right? Once it is extended, then just write down the basic functionalities of that, like guest. In our case, we said that use key or return key, right? Receptionist is issuing a key, or it can create booking, manage booking, right? So that we write down. Then housekeeper assigned to the room, right? Creating housekeeping tasks. So that we wrote down here. Then let's jump to the room. In room, the basic functionalities, which basic properties first, like room number, type of room, maximum accommodation, whether it is available or not available, check-in, check-out, everything is there. Then room had things like room key. This is basically, you can say it's an association where room key can exist without the room, but it is actually part of the room, right? Then housekeeping is same way. It's part of the room, whatever tasks are happening, but they can exist independently as well, right? Now your room booking. So room booking can have check-in, check-out, date, and your payment status or booking status. It can be one. Then upon room booking, what it can do, it system needs to send notifications. So that is how room booking will use notification class, right? Then your room services, so on booking, these things will be added, right? So there will be a room service. Now room service can be type of your amenities or other things, right? Breakfast can be another service, your kitchen service, right? So those things are like part of this booking. So these we created. Then if a guest is going to search, then search can be your separate, you can call it a search service, which is abstract an interface first, and then this interface will be implemented by let's say a room catalog where all the lists is available. So it will provide you the functionalities to do searching, adding, and everything on that catalog. So on a very high level, this is actually very high level, UML diagram is ready. Once you have this UML diagram, then you can create an skeleton. So what I did is, whatever I had here in this diagram, just created a class out of it and simply added those, whatever is written here, added that into the class. For example, let's just see the room key. So room key here is having your key ID, whether it's a master or not, assigned to a room, right? Or whether it is active or not. So if I go to room key, all those things I just tried to write it down here, right? This can be empty because I'm creating a skeleton. Same way, if I go to my room, this is having all those properties and all those functionalities. These are empty functionalities for now. So this way I created all the classes and their basic properties. I have not added any functionality to it as of now. Like room catalog was there, like I said, it can provide my search methodology, on it. So search by type, search by occupancy, blah blah blah. I have not added add, update, delete kind of feature into it right now. So this is skeleton. Once this is done, your design model is kind of ready. We haven't followed any pattern yet. We haven't done the end-to-end functionality, that how one class is using another class to do something, like user is using the search service to actually search a room from the catalog. That is what we will do in the next step. All right, after this UML diagram and skeleton code is done, from this, the next thing which we are going to jump into the design patterns which we need to follow in this design. Now, because this is the first video I'm recording in which I'm talking about design patterns while designing any, the entire design of any system. So it may look overwhelming that how it will, how you will be able to do it in the interview. But I think what we can do here is, and how I myself learned this is, just to follow this process for 2-3 designs, and you will be able to come up with all the design patterns in your design interview for whatever question you are trying to solve, right? So my only suggestion is follow the pattern and don't think that you will not be able to do it. So I'll start with this. So basically what I myself do first is I try to write down all the patterns which can come in this particular design. So let me share some with you. So first is the basic one, which you will be able to see in every design, every system which you are designing, is factory pattern. So wherever you are having objects, classes which may have different types, subtypes of that, there you can use a factory pattern, right? So I in fact created a separate document on this. So for example, here I am having a booking. Now booking can be of different type, like here for example I shared a regular booking, advanced booking, online, blah blah blah. They can be multiple times. Same way, room can be of standard, deluxe, this thing and that, right? So that means ultimately you are having a base class named as room, base class named as booking in this case, and then you are having some subtypes like standard room, deluxe room, right, and others. Same way for booking also. So wherever you are having different types of a class, we can use factory pattern. So this is just the basic code. How can you create? So always create a factory of that particular type. That's one. Moving on to the next pattern. Next is let me go over via this document. So in this case, we can use a template pattern. And now template pattern, basically why we are using it here is, so I'm having a basic algorithm to book room booking. One way was that what we can do is we can directly create the object of booking, save it, and right, that's it. Now obviously when we are doing booking, there are multiple steps which you have to do. You have to check if that room is still available, right? Then get customer details from your catalog, then process the payment, confirm booking, send confirmation. This is the basic, you can say, steps which I have to follow when I'm booking a room. Now rather than client is calling these methods separately, what we can do is we can create a master function. Let's just call it booking or book room. In this case I have called it. Define your algorithm here. Now here can be, if let's suppose check availability is a generic method which every type of booking have to follow, then you can give a definition here. Otherwise just create these abstract methods, and when you are having a concrete booking class, like for example online booking, they can override the definition of those methods, right? That way you, if you see now, this is close for the modification. So I'm basically following an open close principle here, that it is open for the extension. So today I'm having online booking, advanced booking, which I showed earlier. Phone booking came in later on into my system, so I can introduce this new type at any point of time, which will extend my basic system of booking. And you can give your definition of those particular steps into this class, so that way you will be able to introduce new functionalities without changing the core code. So you are not touching the existing things, right? So that is how template method pattern is required in this particular design. And after the template pattern, basically we also need in our booking object which we already created, we need to add more features. By feature I mean, especially in this case, like we did a basic booking. Now in booking, a user want to add breakfast to it, or other extra services which we are having, we can add it later. Here I just took the example of Wi-Fi booking and parking. So that means all those things can be added into your booking. So rather than changing the code again and again, use a decorator pattern. How the decorator pattern works is, create the decorator of whatever subject you are having. In this case, booking is my main subject. Now in that, every method of the decorator should return the object of that particular type, right? When you are doing it, then what will happen is, whenever you are using the decorator, so if your booking is done, then just pass that booking, and on that you can add more things. So whatever is your base plus this, I am doing with this, whatever is your base functionality plus add in this case the money to it, right? So that way you can override all the functionalities in the base plus add extra things to it, whatever you want to do. So that way decorator will help me extend the features of a particular object that we need, especially in this case, right? Then third is, we can go to observer. Especially in a hotel booking scenario, what do we need is, whenever a booking is happening, we need to send notifications to the user whenever a state of booking is changing. So that means you need an observer who is waiting for every change which are happening into your booking. So for observer pattern, what we need is, what is your subject? So I defined here like my subject notification in subject. So here my subject is booking. So in my booking class, whichever is doing booking, these three method needs to be implemented. Then anyone can register themselves as that I am an observer, I want to observe changes into you. Second is, remove that and notify that observer whenever a change is happening to your subject, right? Then whoever is an observer, in my case user will be an observer, right? When a booking is changing, or a notification handler can be an observer. That guy needs to have implement update method, that so that your notification observer, whenever things is changing, basically this will call update method of your observer. Then just for example, email notification is one of my observer that needs to implement this method. Then SMS notification is another observer that needs to implement the same method, right? I will show all of these in action. Right now I'm just trying to create a list of what all design patterns are required in this particular design, right? Next we can move to our state pattern, right? Especially in any design where there are states and states are changing, right? So without a pattern, you can simply implement this. It's easy that changing, especially something like booking, changing from your in process to reserved state to confirmed state to some other state. But a pattern is already there, state pattern. So whenever you are having state of some of your object, you can actually leverage this pattern to implement that, and basically it will help you adding more state later on and managing them easily without changing the main, so that you can follow all the solid principles when implementing a state related functionality. So a booking can transition between states like pending blah 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 blah, right, and specific behavior. So how we can implement? So in this case, my booking state is a class, right, is another thing. So we can define the interface for it and what all things I need to define with it, that from this state, in which state it can go and print this particular state. So whenever there is a state, you can implement this method into it. How you will use it, that I will show into the real code, right? This is just to define the design pattern in context of hotel booking management. One more pattern is like strategy. I haven't written the code here because I haven't used it. So especially like in this particular design, we need things like in peak season the prices will be different, on weekends the prices will be different, right, and on normal days the prices will be different. So basically I need a strategy to define pricing model. In that case we can use strategy pattern. So factory we already discussed, then strategy pattern I just talked about why do we need it, and we'll see the code of it. Observer pattern, we just saw the code, the basic code of it. Decorator also we saw that we needed to extend functionality of our subject, in this case the booking. Then singleton pattern is very famous, and in this particular design we need it if we are created our booking management system, the main manager class which will handle all the bookings. So we need a singleton pattern of it. And if we are creating a catalog or repository, so obviously we need a singleton repository, so that if multiple threads in parallel are trying to create bookings and trying to book the same room, then that is where the singleton pattern will help us, so that no overlap is happening. Then adapter pattern we need in case, so in this particular design I will ignore this because I do not have any payment gateway and all those things implemented in low level design, so we can skip this one. Then command pattern, especially because whenever you are doing something which you want undo or redo later on, that is where we can implement a command pattern. In this case I thought about command pattern but I didn't implement it, so we can ignore that. But that, especially when you will design the full design of it, command pattern will be required there. State, we discussed, we definitely need it because booking is having multiple states. So to manage that particular functionality, that particular piece, state pattern will help us. Proxy, I didn't discuss it, but I definitely implemented it into the code and I will show. So proxy we need, think of that you have something like a repository or any class where you want you can say authorized access, for example. So what you can do is, if let's suppose in repository I'm having functionality like add a room, where admin is trying to add a room, modify any room, availability of the room, such functionalities, then obviously the core class which we are calling a room repository is supposed to have all the CRUD operations. But if we need functionality like only admin should be able to do add, only admin should be able to do update, but booking of a room receptionist can do, or a user can also do, right? So in that case what we will do is we will create a proxy of your repository, where proxy will have base.add, which is calling the main core functionality, before that, it can do authorization check whether the user who is or client whoever is calling it, whether they are authorized to do it or not. That is where I'm using proxy in this particular design. But proxy is basically where you are accessing the base plus doing something extra on it. So to your client, always provide proxy object rather than the core concrete class object. Then chain of responsibility, especially because in this particular chain of responsibility, when you are doing multiple things on the same object, so that is where what you can do is, for example, here in case of booking, I have to do multiple things, like first is validation, whether room is available now or not, then the payment, then the confirmation. And all these things, if are done by different actors or different users, in that case first object will do its work, let's say validation. Then the object after that will be passed to the second actor, and then second actor will act upon it and will pass it to the next actor. That is where we need the chain of responsibility, and especially in this case also it is required. Then our repository is for, obviously, because in memory we will keep the list of rooms, a list of bookings and all those. Template method we discussed. So I think our main step here is to write down all the patterns which you can think of from your functionality, from your activity diagram, right? So if you will do it for 2 or just 3 designs, you will be able to do it very easily. That is how I learned about it, and in interviews that is an extra edge uh, which we will get if we will be able to add this step to our design patterns, uh, to our system design interview. All right, as now we are having all the building blocks to complete this design, let's write down the final code to at least have a booking flow. So I created this booking flow folder where I wrote the final code, so that we have a flow where a user will be able to search the room, and then user will be able to complete the booking, and also can add some extra services like breakfast into a booking, which we discussed in our design patterns. So to start with, we obviously need the basic classes like we created in our skeleton. We created a room and booking, for example. So let's start with that. So room will be this is a basic class of the room. I created it an abstract room class so that we can, if we are having types of room, so we can create concrete classes which will override some functionalities like we discussed in our design patterns as well, right? So this is how we will create. The next base class we need, the bare minimum class is booking. So here I created another class which is abstract again, because booking also can have different types, for example regular, advanced booking, right, and others. So you can extend it later on. In booking, this is straightforward, a constructor is there. Then like we discussed in state pattern, because booking is going to have states, so we used that state patterns to navigate from one state to another. So that is why it is having your set state, next state and previous state methods into it. And then basic things like get booking details, get total cost and everything, and your concrete classes will override it. So these two are the bare minimum, what do you say, the bare minimum objects which we need in the system. Now, as we discussed, to create objects of this, one is obviously you can directly call the constructor and create it, but because we are having different type of rooms, we are also having different type of bookings, better to follow a factory pattern here. So which is a creational pattern. So for room, I created this booking factory where you pass the booking type and room for the booking, and it will create the object for you. Then second, you can create same thing for your room. You can create a factory for that as well, right? So like here I just gave a bare bone factory where you pass the room type and it will give you the object of it. And obviously this creation of room itself will be complicated in future, right? It will not be that straightforward. So that is where this room factory will be very helpful. Now, as we created the factory and the basic classes for us, let's create the repository first so that we have some objects, rooms available for us so that we can do searching and booking of those rooms, right? So for that I created a very basic repository where user should be able to add room, user should be able to edit the room, and update and delete, blah blah blah. So this is the basic room repository which I have created. Once you are having this basic repository, what we should do, so this is pretty straightforward, no need to explain this code, right? I also created an interface so that it is easy to extend it later on. It's better to keep it open rather than create only a concrete class. Once this is created, what I did is in the main class where our program is starting, I just simply wrote one method to create some rooms for us to run this design end to end, right? It has nothing to do with design actually, but it is to run the demo end to end, right? So once you created the repository, now what do we now need is something for user to search. How user will do a search on our room. So like we said here is in catalog, so our room catalog or repository, I'm just using these words interchangeably. We need a service which will help us do the searching. So for that, first I created this iRoom search. Just think of it as a service which will help me do the searching. All these methods I created in my repository directly, but we can outsource this to a room search service, right? So this is that. So in room repository, like we are having all these methods which are like core methods to directly update, edit your repository. So like I said, we are supposed to create a proxy, room catalog proxy or room repository proxy, so that user is accessing these methods via proxy. And in your proxy you can write whether user authorization as well with this. For now I have not implemented it for this one, but ultimately we are supposed to use a proxy pattern here, right? I'm not implementing authorization in the context of this design. I'm only focusing on booking so far. So now so far what we have done is we have created basic classes, which is our booking and room. Then we have created a room repository, right? We have added some rooms into that repository from our program.cs. Now let's jump into the next step. Now next step is booking is just an entity, right? But who will run that algorithm to do the booking? So for that I have created a class, you can call it a service, which is I named it as room booking, right? So think of it as a booking service, right? Now like I said, booking service, I'm creating it as an abstract class because I'm following a pattern here which is my template pattern. What I want is this base class, which is an abstract class, to give an algorithm that what all steps are needed to do a room booking. So here is the outline of it, that first just check the availability of that room, whichever room you are trying to book, then get customer details, assuming you will get customer details from the repo or somewhere, then do the process payment. Right now obviously these methods are empty, they're not doing anything. I'm just booking the room, whichever room user is asking me to book directly. Final step is do the booking, which is nothing but a confirm booking, and after that notify observer. In our case that observer is nothing but your user, right? So this is the template pattern where you gave the outline of your algorithm into your base abstract class. When you are having a concrete class, like in this case, my concrete class is online booking, for example, those concrete classes will override all the methods which are having different functionalities than the base one, right? So you are supposed to override that functionality. So walk-in booking and online booking are the two examples which I took here. Another thing to note down here is, like I said, we are following an observer pattern, right? For that observer pattern, because booking is my subject and this is a service which is supposed to do the booking, in that case, this class will implement that iNotification subject. iNotification subject is have to have some methods. One is that it will allow some observers to be registered in this. So if you see, observer is list of observers, basically it is having to whoever it will notify whenever an action is happening. In this case, that action is booking. Then register observer is coming from iNotification subject, and remove observer and notify observers, right? So these three methods it needs to implement. So whenever a user is trying to do the booking, first it will register itself in the list of observers. Once a booking, whenever a booking is happening, what it will do is it will simply call notify observer. So whatever is the list of observers it is having here, it will simply send it will call the update method of those observers, so that whoever is the observer will receive this booking object, whatever is that updated object is, right? So two things we are following here. One is template pattern and second is your observer pattern. Template is to standardize your base algorithm of the entire action which you are doing, and your observer pattern is to notify your whoever observers are on that particular action, right? In this case, your booking, and your observer is a user. So now we do have all the building blocks in terms of our design patterns also ready. So let's finally work on a one flow where we will check end to end how that flow can work with these design patterns and properly designed system. So basically in this for the purpose of this class, what I did is I created this flow where a user will do room search first. Once you search the room, that is considered as a selected room, then next thing you will do, simply book that room. So your booking is done. Once booking is done, then we will try to add some extra services into it. And like I already discussed, in all of these, I use the appropriate design pattern to do it rather than just writing a naive brute forced approach to do that. Okay, let's start with the search room first. Now search room, in my user class itself, I'm treating it as a, you can say, for the purpose of the demo, I'm just writing the main functions, which is considered as client methods, how client is calling the services whichever being used. Like for search, we are using this room search service and all. So when I'm searching a room, normally I can pass the parameters that I want for given dates. I need a room for 3 members or 4 members. Here I'm not passing, I'm directly doing everything inside this method. So let's just go to the definition of it. This is again in my search service. There are all the methods which we implemented, all right, but I created another wrapper on it so that I don't have to write too much code for the demo. So this is doing the normal thing. First I'm getting all the rooms. For that I'm using the room search service which we created. It will give me all the rooms. Then I'm just printing what all rooms are available. And finally I already chose one room which is 103 randomly. This is I'm considering as a selected room. for the demo. In a real world scenario, what we are supposed to do is we will pass this, room type and other things, and ultimately that room number will be chosen using the same room search service. Once your room is selected, then this service is supposed to return that room, right? Now you are having a room. Next we will do is a booking, right? So for booking, what we did here is, so if you remember, we created a book room service, right, where we are following a template pattern. Now book room is an abstract class. uh, so if I can go back to my room booking service, which is this one, this is an abstract class, but whenever you have to book the real booking, you have to basically call a concrete service. So in this case, I'm having only two options: online booking and walk-in booking, or offline booking, and you can call it. So when you are trying to create a booking, you have to create object of this. Means this object can be fed, injected directly into my user handler service. But for the simplicity, I created this. All right, so it can fed like this one. So if you see, room search service was fed already, booking factory was fed. It's just that I'm not using the booking factory. I use the factory in room creation, which I showed earlier into the video. So consider you are having the object of online booking, right? Then once you are having it, you simply, the next step you do is ask your online booking service to book this selected room which we are sending. That I want to book this room, I already selected it, right? Once this is done, then what this online booking will do, it will simply execute all the methods which it needs to, right, in my basic template, which is just check if this room is still available, then get the customer details, process the payment, and finally confirm booking. Once this is done, then also notify the user. Now it will notify user if you added any observer, right, or if there is an observer. So for that, what I did is, before I'm calling this online booking.book room, I'm actually registering an observer. In this case, I'm using the email notification, and email notification is supposed to have a update method. Whenever a booking is happening, basically that booking class will call update method of the observer. In this case, email notification is the observer, and in that update method you can do the functionality of send email, right? I'm just printing it on the console that email is sent once booking is done. All right, so this is registered, so we are supposed to see that that email sent thing. Finally, once booking is done, we are simply printing the details of it and returning this booking to my client. In this case, the client is this method, right? Once booking is done, the final step we are doing is we are adding extra service to this existing booking, right? Then rather than just modifying it in a naive way, we used our what do you call it, a decorator pattern, right? So to add any extra service, we are passing the service type, we are using that type of decorator to simply add it into this, so that whatever you need to modify when you are doing this implementation, that everything will be you can say encapsulated in this decorator, and do all the complex work here, rather than the client who is trying to modify the same booking object, right? So these three steps to run this end to end. All right, let's just run this project now to check all the steps end to end. So I just ran it already offline, and it is working fine, means there are no debugging or runtime issues. So what I'll do is I'll run it on the debug mode, so that we can see all the steps one by one, right? So I'm debugging it. Okay, so it came to the flow which we created. This is acting as a client, right? So I'll go to the next step. We'll go inside this. So we are calling a search service, where we are imagining that we are passing the parameters here. I skipped that because that's too much, but it's simple to to see. Once it will go inside your search room, what it will do is first it will get uh, uh, all the rooms from the repository which we created when from our program.cs. Like, so it is only adding 2 rooms, it is just printing those. These are like available rooms right now. Then it is going to find the room by room number, right? We got the room, and once you are having the room, it is just printing it, what was the price and everything in that. Right now it should come here and return. So let's go to the next step. Now, so I'm already having a room here. We got the room which we tried to select with obviously an hard-coded room number. Then second step we need to do is the booking of the room. So we are going over that. I'm trying to find this room. Then I created a object of the concrete class of my booking service. Then I'm trying to register an observer. That's done. Now it will try to do the room booking. If it will come here, what it is doing is this is your room number. Just check the availability of it. Let's go inside it. It is getting the room basically, and I'm simply returning it. So I'm not checking whether it's available or not available. If it is in the repository with that room number, just simply returning it. I'm considering it as it is available. So we can put an extra if to check, if is available is true or not. Then these 2 methods are empty, so we'll skip it. Basically, we have not implemented these functionality of processing payment and all. We are simply creating the booking. Then next is confirm booking. So in this, what we are doing is basically we created a regular booking. So again, our booking had multiple types. So we simply created whichever type we want to create. So regular booking is created with the room which we passed. So it's basically done. So far we already did the booking is confirmed, processing payment and everything is done. The next step is the user should be notified for this. So notify observer, whoever basically whatever number of observers we are having. So in this case only 1 observer, which is our email notification, which we did before we initiated the booking. So for this one, it will simply try to call the update method of that observer. Once that is done, if you can see, what it is doing is it is saying that email is sent, or booking is this is successfully done. So basically all the number of observers will be notified by, and we use an observer pattern here. So end to end, basically these basic steps are done. One final step is left. Like we said that we if we have to modify this existing object, if we have to extend anything into it, for that we used another pattern called decorator pattern. Alternatively, what we could have done is booking dot add breakfast equals to this, hence add whatever price of the breakfast into my booking total pricing. But instead of doing it on client side or in my booking the core booking code, I'm actually extending it using my decorator pattern. So we'll go into this. So what it is doing is, first you are supposed to pass the type what extra service, so which is nothing. Once you will do that, it will simply choose your decorator which it needs to execute, and once this is done, then obviously it will from your main it will create the object, and finally whatever method it needs to override, it will simply override those. That means if now your pricing change, so earlier you had booking details that 150 was the pricing and blah blah blah, total cost was this, but now after this that will change. So this is now with the breakfast, and your price changed to 250, and we didn't do that calculation and everything outside, that is actually now encapsulated inside that decorator. So that's easy to maintain and easy to extend. So we can add any extra service like this later on. That's it. So this was the main basic flow which we created, and we tried to follow all the design patterns. So just to conclude, if you see what we followed here is, first step, we wrote down all our requirements, right? Once your requirement was done, then we created list of all the classes out of those requirements, means these are your nouns. Simply, once this is done, we just try to cluster them, that related classes should sit together. Once that is done, using that, we try to create a UML diagram, means all the related classes are together, and if something is using a class in the neighbor class, we are just trying to link that. Also, if something is extended, that there is a relationship, we try to mark that down. And then we simply wrote very basic properties which we think can come in that particular class, right? Once that was done, we created an skeleton, means whatever was there on our UML diagram, we tried to copy paste it in your C# classes, or Java class also we can do, right? Same way, activity diagram also we created in between. So for activity diagram, we simply tried to list down who, means whatever actors you had, what those actors are doing. So that helped us creating an activity diagram. Once your skeleton everything was done, then the one step which I added in this particular design, and I will follow it in every video which I will create after this, is I tried to create list of design patterns. Whatever design patterns I know, I tried to create list of design patterns which I feel I can use in that particular functionality, right? It might feel overwhelming for now, that how can I list down design pattern without even knowing all the design patterns. But if you will follow this, I'm assuming the basics of design pattern you already know. Maybe it's not always on top of your mind, but if you will start following this way of using design pattern into your design, it will be easy. You will see that after 2 or 3 patterns, you will be able to follow this, means you will be able to identify all the design pattern, and actually you will use design patterns in your design. That is how I learned it, honestly. So yeah, so I tried to list down all, and I after that I directly jumped and tried to write functionality of my from my skeleton into the real, convert that into the real code. And obviously for this demo, I named them as that how I'm using a design pattern to implement that particular functionality. So I created the code and I saw if what design pattern I was using here. So that particular I tried to highlight in this. So end to end, yeah. So basically this is I'm trying to learn by doing. So rather than just learning the design pattern, I started doing designs, and while doing designs I'm learning the design patterns. This is a better approach according to me, right? So yeah, it is working for me. So let's see. I guess, yeah, thank you very much. I'll create more videos following the same structure which I created in this one, and that way we'll be able to tackle this low level system design, where we are actually using the design patterns rather than just the basic approach of writing the brute force code, which doesn't really fly into a senior level interview. Thank you guys, take care, bye bye.